To most hill walkers, climbing all Scotland's 3,000-foot mountains is a lifetime's ambition. They are known as the Munros, and I decided to climb them all, non-stop, in less than 100 days. What a wild place. Yes, all 282 of them. From heat wave to blizzard. It's getting hard. Over rocky peaks and remote plateaux. Crazy thing is, I've still got another 8 Munros to do in this circuit. I'm pretty much at one of the most remote points in Scotland. I am way out here. Oh, I am so tired. Toughest layer. Follow me on an adventure spanning 2,000 kilometres, the width and breadth of Scotland. I'm Kevin Woods and I'm 21 years old. I'm doing all the Munros, of which there are 282, in one single journey. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I've been planning it for 2 years. I've seen other people who have been doing it, and I've always thought to myself, you know, one day I would like to do that. And finally, at long last, I am actually now here. The hill walking bug hit me early.
We're glad to be at the top now. And here we are.
My dad would take me and my brother out to the hills accessible from Glasgow. And the more I did, the more I wanted to go again. But the serious hill walking began at age 15. I've been climbing mountains in the Highlands I've been doing it for 6 years. And I've kind of developed a relationship with the Highlands, essentially. I love to watch the snow on mountains. You know, it comes and it melts. Mountaineers always get excited about when is the snow coming. One of the big things is actually the quality of person you meet. You know, every time I go on a big trip, I always meet somebody that's really, really just interesting and gives me loads of food for thought and loads of things to think about. And we always have great chats. And as much as the actual walking, sometimes I love to meet really interesting people on the road. At the heart of it, I think my core motivation is just loving being on mountains. I am here on the Isle of Mull, and I'm at the foot of a mountain called Ben More. The idea that I'm going to be walking up mountains every day for the next 100 days is just absolutely, that blows my mind, and I'm doing it. One of the fascinations about walking in Scotland is the weather, because it just changes all the time, and it really screws with your mood. It really kind of, 1 minute you feel really shit, and the next minute the sun comes out, and you're like, you feel amazing. There's so much to get excited about. They're saying it's going to be cloudy in the morning and then it's going to start raining around about lunchtime. I think what we're going to do is get up early as we can. So we'll get up and down Ben More, get back to Oban and hopefully make some distance towards Ben Cruachan. I feel great. It's May and it's like this. We're going to head on the boat back to Oban and then get the other 281 done. It was all blowing snow at the top, and as we came down, a big sleet storm came in and absolutely annihilated us from behind. Cookies are necessary at any time of year. Ben Cruachan is a high mountain, so it took me a while to get to the top.
You better head up to Ben Cruachan.
On top there were big slobbery snowfields, melting away in all the rain.
I'm risking getting chilled if I can't actually get off the hill. I'm always on the edge of being too cold. But here, I'm on this one. And now, thank God for that, I can go down.
With the days Munros done, it was such a relief to have completed something that had been a huge mental block. I am knackered. We're in Glenessive. It's cold and wet. I'm on my third day out of 100. And I'm pitching a tent in the pissing rain. And it's wonderful.
It's really cold and damp.
It's raining again. I've been doing this trip now, it's my 5th day and it's rained every single day. And it's blowing a gale as well. Really intense. Really intense. It's just really hard work. And it's almost quite nerve-wracking, stressful, anxious, and somehow still enjoyable. I'm not too sure how. I seem to be pretty terrified of snow when there's a chance of it falling on me. I don't feel I fully understand it as a medium to know how far I can push it. Bidjan Nambian was the biggest mountain I would climb while the May snows were still clinging on, and its avalanches had already claimed 4 lives this year. I really hate to say it, but I'm thinking of turning back. So far this spring, not a lot of the snow has melted. For May, there's a heck of a lot of snow. I actually feel uncomfortable up here. I'm risking soft snow avalanches. And all in all, it's just looking pretty grim. So the weather conditions are good, it's just the ground conditions are pretty severe. I'm not going to take the chance. I'd rather be safe and pissed off.
It's absolutely pissing wet, but I'm quite happy.
2 weeks in, and I was at Crean Larrick. After endless drenchings, I kind of expected just to get another soaking. Ancastia was covered in knee-high snowdrifts. It was like mid-winter. As I left the summit, an intense hailstorm hammered in. And then, it cleared. It was such a relief to climb Miala Correlé and stand in the sun untroubled by wind and rain, or worrying if I was going to get too cold before I got the next summits done. Sure, the air was cold and it wasn't a time to relax, but the sun was high, the skies were blue, and I could see this huge arc of mountains north of Rannoch Moor, from Ben Nevis in the west to Dromochter in the east. I'd done 7 Munros in a single day, and it felt great to be pushing away from the starting blocks. I woke up at Bridge of Orchy, just not feeling psychologically ready to take on a day so big. The weather had finally come good, but it didn't seem to help. I was just all over the place in my mind. And for some reason, this psychological block had suddenly come out from nowhere. It's quite painful to try and get going this morning. I think it's partly the 5 Munros thing. The fact I'm just doing so much today. It's quite cold and I'm very sort of scatty this morning. And I really cannot be arsed going. As in, I would quite happily couple. I got up onto Ben Doran and I still wasn't feeling quite right, and I just knew the whole day was going to be a struggle start to end. Today I'm planning to do 5 Munros, and I've done 1 so far, and I've really had to haul myself up it. It's almost like feeling strangled by it, by the need to go and do X number of Munros, camp out, and 2 more tomorrow, and it's a bit overwhelming, and it's, yeah, total pain in the ass. By mid-afternoon I was on the 4th Munro, Ben a Creachin, and there my mood had just got worse. It should be a perfect day, but I just feel like absolute rubbish. And I'm at that point that I knew I'd get to, where I'm just like, why am I doing this? And it's really annoying because the option of giving just keeps on presenting itself. That in itself is exhausting. And it's just so tempting to listen to, even though I can't. I decided instead of going over 5 and dipping down to where I want to camp, I'm just going to stay on that side of the 5th hill and I'm just going to camp tonight. So I got down there and I put the tent up and I put a meal on and I had a cup of tea as well, and I started to just sort of feel better. So I ended up thinking, well, maybe, you know, it's getting late, but maybe I can make over that last hill. And it was such a weird experience because suddenly for the first time all day, I think what it was for the first time all day, I had no pressure. There was no pressure to be over that next mountain because I'd finally accepted there and now I'm doing no more, and all the pressure just lifted off. I took my tent down and I put my rucksack on and I just took a slow plod, just foot in front of the other. I'm getting up that hill. And I got up to the top, and actually it was getting late, so the other mountains were casting shadows onto where my campsite was. It's almost poetic. I literally just climbed straight out of the shadows. My mindset was almost one of bliss, and I couldn't quite believe the transformation that had just happened. I knew it at the time. I knew that something had changed. Even though I've had a total nightmare of a day, it's funny because I'm just like, well, thank you. Where did this come from? I do not know. It's funny. Can't hear a thing. Only mountains could do this. This is why I came here. This is why I'd only do this sort of thing over mountains. Because this incredible experience is what they give me. And although I felt like rubbish a couple hours ago, this is just off the scale. What a wonderful evening it's been. I'm just so grateful to have been here. I woke up the next morning and I was still absolutely blissfully happy, and it was really strange because I woke up and I had another couple of mountains to do. And I just, right, okay, this is on the road, this is going to happen. All the way up, 3,000 feet up to Munro number 1, it was like a wee fuzz of bliss in my head. And I just kept going and I kept going, and after that I was pretty certain that this is going to be absolutely fine. The weather today is flawless, and I could not ask for any better. The other thing as well is I feel great. I feel absolutely fantastic. It just strikes me how this walk is totally a mental thing. It's not physical at all. 10 Munros done in the last 3 days, 20 done in the last 5 days. So I'm up at 45 now. Did my own in Tarmacan this morning, which was my 50th Munro, and I'm on this one wheel Gardaí, which will be 51. Just 3 weeks into the whole thing, so I'm actually on target. It's good to go up hills for once and actually feel properly inspired. It's great to make progress and to actually kind of remind myself that I am actually in the middle of this and it's actually happening right now. So sometimes you get a day and you're just literally like, I just did that to climb 2 Munros. I didn't do that for any other reason. But they're quite rare, thankfully. It actually becomes quite normal to go up a hill, and in fact it's not really challenging anymore. It is challenging in that you've got to do it day after day after day after day, but in a sense it becomes quite mundane. The weather at last is absolutely beautiful, and it's so settled and so calm, and it's just amazing. Currently I'm on the summit of Biddy and Numbean. I'd mentioned before that I got turned back from this one, so it's really good to finally be standing on the top. The Atholl area is all huge, rounded, heathery hills with streams cutting into the peat. It's quite unique in that it's actually less effort to go over the summits rather than through the watercourses between them. It has an enormous emptiness, and the Tarf Hotel sits square in the middle of it all. I should point out that the Tarf Hotel isn't actually a hotel, it's just a bothy. It's a bit concerning. I'm basically fueled by hundreds and hundreds of brunch bars all day, every day. I'm at the Spittal of Glen Muick. It's the 7th of June. And I'm going to do 5 Munros on a circuit which includes Loch Nagar. And Loch Nagar will actually be my 100th Munro, which is a very nice feeling. The sun pounded down on the long walk by Loch Mick. The air today was hazy and warm, heavy clouds drifted. It reminded me of those dramatic oil landscape paintings. The plateau were brown and orange today. The colour of the sun filtered through hazy air. Surrounding peaks were mostly climbed now and ranged off into murk. Without a doubt, the most spectacular part of the day was coming over the top of Loch Nagar, the cliffs opening up right beneath my feet. I'm on the summit of Loch Nagar, and it's my 100th Munro of the trip. It's funny, it's just this conveyor belt of mountain after mountain after mountain. I hope the Munro round continues like this. You know, I'm finally at a point where I'm not completely tired every day. I'm now at a point where I'm feeling pretty good every day. You know, pretty content and happy to go and do 20 miles. It's not a problem anymore. I gotta say, I stood in Munro number 50 thinking, my God, this is so hard. And then the next 50 went by and I'm standing in 100 thinking, where did the last 50 go? It's been so easy since then. Everything's just falling into place. I've got my fitness, got the weather, feeling good. Pretty confident that it's going to happen. You know, I feel like unless something really big happens, goes wrong, whatever, I don't expect it to. I just think that, well, there's no reason not to keep going. I'm really happy out here and I feel really good out here. I spent time on the summit exploring the cliffs and staring in awe down at the huge voids of air as I walked around the rim of the quarry. I had meant to go around these hills with my friend Andy, but I was horrendously late in the morning and he had started earlier than me. I stumbled upon some words etched into the path which said, "Well done, Kev, 100th Munro." I stood for a moment trying to figure out who had written them and then laughed out loud when the penny dropped. It was Andy. For the last couple of weeks, I've seen the Cairngorms every day from multiple angles, covered in snow and looking mighty.
Do you know from Invercold?
They're coming into summer condition now, and finally, I'd be getting into the heart of them. I'm at a very special place called Loch Etchican. Loch Etchican is right in the heart of the Cairngorms. It's this huge loch. And allegedly it was frozen until about 2 weeks ago. It's up at 3,000 feet and it's just surrounded by huge mountains. I was talking to a guy last night in the bothy and I actually came to realise, talking to him, that some of the most spectacular of everything I've ever seen in the mountains actually happened in the Cairngorms. They're such a special mountain range. There's just something about them that you don't get elsewhere. It's their power that captures me. There's something about the wide open spaces of the Cairngorms that is inhuman. It's powerful. I've finally broken through to the Spey Valley in Lagan, something I've been looking forward to for a couple of weeks. Right now is a bit of a significant moment. I'm currently on the summit of Munro number 141, and it's significant because there's 282 Munros on the list, and that makes this summit the halfway mark. I can't quite believe it. Funny though, just sitting here thinking how much has happened and how much I've still got to go, and I've seen so much, and I've been in so many mountains and so many ranges, and I've had so many highs, emotional highs, I've had so many lows, and to think that I've got all that coming again. It's good, but it's sobering. Finally up really high. I got Ben Nevis right behind me. It looks incredible. So, doing well, I'm on schedule. It feels amazing to be up here. It's kind of like one of these, it's what it's all about days. I get a lot of days where I'm like just plodding for the sake of it. But today is just like, it's one of the really good ones. Yeah, this is amazing. I was about to cross the Great Glen, a huge geological fault that split Scotland. It also formed a mental barrier in my mind. There would be so much opportunity to go behind schedule. The weather was about to break down, and I was dreading it. I hadn't been to Knoydart before. My friend Dougie was joining me for this 3-day trip which offset a lot of the potential isolation of one of the most starkly savage places I've now ever been. We didn't even get the best of the weather for Knoydart, but I'm still of the opinion that it's all that people say it is, and more. These hills are so big and the day was hard. There was the stress of the long day, the weight of the rucksacks, the prospect that however hard today was, tomorrow would be further and harder. But Neudart really is incredible, and I wish I had more time to stay and really see it without the pressure of peak bagging. I'm doing 8 Munros across 3 days, and there's just no getting away from the fact that there's still so far to go. I'm not even at the summit of the first one. I'm on the slopes of a mountain called Larvin, and what a mountain. It's one of the greatest peaks in Scotland, and it's just absolutely magnificent. It's like the crown in an incredible area. Larvin had been a hard slog, but Luniven was harder. The hours slipped by worryingly fast, and we began to realise we'd get to the sanctuary of Surley's Bothy very late. I'm so tired. I feel very frantic and quite stressed, and I just feel like I've bitten off more than I can chew. So it's 10 to 8 in the evening, the day I'm doing Neudart, and it's been a roller coaster day. It's been crazy, and it's been crazy simply because it's taken so long and it's taken so much out of me. I've still got one to go, which is called Mealbuie. Most of Neudart is kind of rough, but Mealbuie is simply one of the most dramatic mountains I've ever seen. The earth spilled up its guts in this hill. Topographically, it's not outstanding compared to many other well-sculpted mountains, but everywhere is an insane maze of bare, exposed slabs, walls, and crazy contortions of rock. How the hell did this mountain end up this way? Sometimes in this Munro walk I really do feel like... Woo! Where did that come from? Yeah, sometimes in this Munro walk I feel like I've bitten off more than I can chew. This is one of them. We got down to the Mam Meadal path as the light dimmed and dropped down to Loch Nevis as the light completely went. Even still, we didn't quite need torches. The next day was hard from the outset, with tension in the air that you could sense, but didn't want to disturb. It's 2 in the afternoon. It's the first Munro of many, and the mood is very tense. It's just like, there's so far to go and the weather isn't very good either. We've got a tent stashed at the dam of Loch Coich, which is about 16, 17, 18 miles from here. It's the 4th Munro of the day, and it's getting hard. Spirits are good, but it's really hard to give so much effort, especially when it's 7 o'clock at night in the evening and there's still so far to go, and I am tired. We're probably not going to get back to the tent until about probably after midnight, and it's just, yeah, times like these I do think, oh, this is hard. The crazy thing about today's huge route was that any retreat wouldn't really be an escape at all. The logistics of getting back on schedule would be just as great as putting the head down and plodding on now. Even so, the rain fell without pause all day, soaking us through and making it a simple physical and mental challenge. We arrived back at the tents completely shattered. The end of one of the hardest and most memorable days of the walk. The Cuillin, on the Isle of Skye, are a vast horseshoe of jagged mountains. They're the remains of an extinct volcano, perched on the edge of the ocean. They presented some of the greatest difficulties I'd have to face on my trip, and all summer I'd treated them as a great milestone of the journey. I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't actually quite realise that it was going to be this good. They look incredible, and in fact they look impenetrable. Every peak is an experience in the Cuillin, and so I'm just fascinated to see how they turn out. At last the time had come to get up onto the main Cuillin Ridge. First, up into Corria Grunda, and then up the screes to the Munros, Scurin and Egg. The Cuillin simply make you stand and gawp at the views, and then you get back to the task of clambering and climbing. I'm on College Ledge, on a mountain called Scuirvich, and it is simply one of the most exposed places a walker could ever get themselves into. It's a ledge running along a mountainside this steep, and it's just a footpath wide, and it's absolutely incredible. I couldn't have been luckier with the weather in the Cuillin. Visibility really couldn't be a lot better. It's warm, it's sunny, and I can't ask for much more. It's fantastic. It's just been an amazing day. The Cuillin have a strange attraction because to many they're inaccessible and they're harsh and they're stony and they're exposed. But once you get beyond that, they've just kind of got an inner heart there that's just unbelievable. And I think for the first time ever, I've just kind of seen that. The Cuillin chapter is coming to a close. And I'm kind of sad about that because, you know, I could stay here. I could stay here a while longer and get to know it a bit better. It just didn't feel that long ago that I was pushing off the starting blocks and setting off into this huge challenge that essentially was one great unknown. And to go out and do that sort of thing is a risk that you take. And to be honest, God, I'd almost do it again. I'd almost do it again. There is a ring of 12 Munros encircling Loch Malardoch near Canach. They are mountains characterised by their sheer enormity and emptiness. The sun was already hot when I woke up in Glen Canach. I packed reluctantly and set off under a blazing mid-morning sun. If I'd realised how relentless the sun would be, I might have started a lot earlier. But at least I'd brought plenty of water. The ascent to the first Munro, Carnan Gore, was a complete drag. I can honestly say the heat is just brutal. There's no water, and I'll be on these ridges for something like 30 hours at least. I mean, on the whole, I can't complain about heat when the first 3 weeks of the round were so cold. But here I am, sitting complaining about heat, and it's quite overwhelming sometimes. The heat made conventional progress impossible, and I continued over my next mountains in a bit of a sluggish haze. It's just brilliant. Time seemed to melt this day. A high and dazzling sun froze the mountains absolutely still and silent. I don't often have this feeling. I've done 4 Munros so far. It's just about to go on 9 PM. It's been a big day. I've probably climbed somewhere in the region of nearly 3 vertical kilometres. And I'm nearly at the cairn at the top of this 2,500 foot slope. The crazy thing is I've still got another 8 Munros to do in this circuit. Halfway to the monster mountain of Scurin and Kirunan, I decided enough was enough and pitched my tent. I think maybe another wee bit of walking for me and sleep at 3,000 feet, which I'm really looking forward to. The mountains turned to orange and were streaked in long shadows. Darkness settled over with the sun a ball of red. I was now completely alone, with the freedom of the mountains on my heels and nothing to worry about but where I walked and where I went to sleep. I set my alarm early and sleep came as soon as my head hit the bed. It's just after 6 in the morning and I decided to get up early to try and get out of the heat essentially. And it's an amazing morning. Conditions are just unbelievable, but I'm pretty tired. But the good news is that on this mountain I've actually got 50 to go, and they're all in the Northern Highlands, northwest. So that's a really good thought. Most of all, I've just got to take care of myself in the heat. But all in all, it's alright, it's okay. I'll make it. So. It felt like the stress had suddenly piled on out of nowhere. Completing everything up to Africa made me feel as if the back of the trip was broken and everything subsequent would be a come down. I was so wrong. To add to that, I realised I wasn't feeling well. If I wasn't walking, I was quite literally conked out somewhere. From the glen, I set off for Leaguer. Although I made it up to the summit ridge in good time, I just felt I'd had the arse kicked out of me. How the hell would I do Ben Alligan today as well? I'm on the summit of Leaguer, Spidgin a Chora Lea, and yeah, I'm pretty much racing it right now. There's dark clouds coming up from the south and I'm watching them build and build and build. Terrified of thunder. I eyed up the sky cautiously. The rest of Scotland was being hammered by lightning storms, with a house in the central belt being struck and set alight. The upcoming weather forecast wasn't to change, and I would be out in the mountains every day. Luckily, the northwest was the one part of the country that had so far escaped it, and I hoped it would stay that way. I'm about to go over the pinnacles of Leaguer, and then I got to get up another Munro before I can head down. So right now I'm feeling exposed is the best way to put it. Yeah, I don't often feel that way in mountains because I always have the kind of the confidence of fitness, I guess, to be able to walk myself out of anything. But right now, feeling exposed. This is a great example of how mountains seem to work magic sometimes. I just had a lot of fun and ended up at the far end of the pinnacles with my mind buzzing. The sun had been out all afternoon, but as I started up Alligan, the skies began to pour. Luckily, I just missed the worst of it, but it made me feel very anxious of thunder. It's my 4th Munro of the day, and I am shattered. There's threats of thunder, which I hate. Right now I've got 36 Munros to do. I've done 200 and gosh, I've lost count again. The views to the west over the Outer Hebrides were just immense. On descent, the peaks of Cowland Forest turned incredible shades of orange and gold, and the sunset put my mind at ease. I pondered over what the final days of the round might bring. From the despair of the past few days, I began to suspect I might have broken through a barrier. So I'm currently on the summit of Ben and Torridon. I can honestly say for the first time in days I feel relaxed. I just feel I've been so stressed in the last few days. About the end and about the weather and about everything. And I think the key for me is to get up early, get up really early. And I'm really glad to feel, in some sense, confident, because for the first time I've got a game plan and I've got just over a week and a half left to go. And I feel like, yeah, okay, this might happen. Ben was a nondescript ascent, just a fast climb of its big grassy slope. And then an even faster descent. The little horrors bit me to shreds on the summit as I tried to talk to camera. Ah, midges! So that's me going into Fisherfield. Pretty much the most remote Munros we have. I'm going to go over a mountain called Ancellach, which is an absolute monster of a mountain. It's an absolute beast. So today's going to be about 12 kilometres. Tomorrow's going to be a big one. It's going to be about 30 kilometres. Ancellach was a mountain content to the gloom of its own making. The Torridonian sandstone here weathers into an especially sick style of turret and pinnacle. The soils are dark rusted red. The following morning was amazing. Despite being slightly underhydrated and underfed, I held a solid pace through Fisherfield. I'm pretty much at one of the most remote points in Scotland. It's taken me collectively 8 hours of walking to get here, and it will probably take not far short of that to get back to a road. With 1 week to go, I had made it to Ullapool. A huge challenge ahead was over some of the most northerly Munros, 36 kilometres in distance. On the day I'd planned to do it, a weather front came in, and I began to doubt whether I'd manage at all. In the end, I walked for 2 hours before realising that a river crossing at the very end of the day would be impossible. The river would be in spate, so I stopped to weigh up my options. I sat for 20 minutes, just looking to see what my gut was saying. And I sat there for 20 minutes and eventually phoned at the end of it. I was like, okay, I'm coming back. People say to me, oh, enjoy it while you can, or appreciate what you've got right now. And I'm like, God, I would just love to sit there and have no obligation at all. The following day, I was back to finish them off. I did the river crossing at the start of the day instead of the end, and unlike yesterday, it wasn't in spate. The skies were grey and the wind whipped through the grasses. Almost as soon as I'd started, a chink of blue appeared from behind the colourless cloud. Carried on a brisk wind, the blue patch opened up until the entire area was bathed among sunshine and warmth. The wild winds of the day were sending waterfalls vertically up in great plumes of spray. I was looking north to the mountains of the End, an area once so far away I might as well not have given it any thought at all. That elusive Munro, Shanavrai, had been knocked off, and I was very glad to see it in all its immensity in the sun. By climbing Sleach, I became a so-called completer. At some time or other in my life, I'd climbed all the Munros, and now it would allow me to add my name to the list of other completers. 3 friends joined me to celebrate the occasion.
Here we go. Top is Sleach.
There were 9 left to finish this summer's round. I did Ben More Ascent in brutal winds. It wasn't the most ideal place. The rock is broken into angular blocks that are hard on the feet. But it's good to feel so near to the end of the Munro round. The Monar Bunch were the last big day I'd still to do. I don't think any other mountains are quite as awkward as this bunch, and mention should be made of the 2 at the very back, Bidjianachorahishgech and Lurk Vor, which are nothing short of sheer hard work. Get these 2 done and back in a day and you're doing well. Finally, I'm only a few summits away. The end date is in 2 days' time. You know, I'm beginning to look at it retrospectively, and the whole thing has been great. But in another way, I'll be glad to have it done soon, and I'll be glad to go home. Ben Clibrec is one of a few Munros in the real far north of Scotland. It's all the way up beside Ben Hope. Being here was like having walked straight into a Lewis landscape with mile upon mile of bog and subtle hills rising from moorland like the swell. 280 Munros lay behind me. I thought about that hell of a lot. I've stayed in so many bothies, camped out above 3,000 feet, crashed in houses, hostels or in the car. The mountains have always been so inspiring, and I see them so differently now. They're all unified into one great mass in a way that I could never see through weekend trips. I've given them all their own due time, seen each and every one. I can't say there's a bad one among them. This is what I wanted to get out of the whole thing. I just love climbing the mountains, whatever way. I'd been thinking about this day for a long time. It sometimes seemed unbelievably out of reach. The idea of Ben Hope was long a distant dream. The experience was pretty surreal. I was well aware that I'd thought about this moment pretty much every day for the last 2 years. Now that it was here, that huge passage of time didn't register in my head beyond rational understanding. It was a sizable crowd who started off up Ben Hope. Then the trig point came into view not far ahead. When everyone was up, I walked over, then jogged up to the trig point and gave it a very satisfying smack.
Pizza whiskey. Jump in.
$282 Munros in 98 days. Finally done. I'd raised a stack of money for charity, and friends had organised freshly cooked hot pizza at the summit. So this is it. Everyone's on their way back down. I'm on the summit of Ben Hope. 282 mountains in 98 days. And that's me done. This is it. And wow. Thank you.